In this tutorial, we're going to explain how to use the rulers, the guidelines, the snap grid, and the layer control management tools available in Aspire and VCarve Pro. Drawn down the left-hand side of the screen and across the top of the two-dimensional view, you'll see that we have the rulers displayed. These are very useful for assessing the size of your project or parts of a project. The units are displayed in the units that you've set the project up in. So here we've got a project that's 20 inches long, 12 inches high. So here we've got the 0 point, bottom left-hand corner. We come up 10 inches, 11, 12 inches high. We're coming across the top from 0, 10, 20 inches along the x-axis. If we click onto one of the rulers with the left mouse button and click and drag, we can drag off a guide. The guidelines are very useful for constructing geometry. So here we can snap a guide, and you'll see next to the cursor its relative position to the x0, y0 origin is displayed. So there we're at 1 inch away from the origin. If we click and drag, it snapped to ½ an inch, 2 inches. So we could click and leave that, so we leave a guide at 2 inches. We can click and drag a second guide, and we can move this across, and you'll see that it's showing the absolute coordinates from the bottom left hand corner. So that's 0, that's now at 18 inches across the material. If we hold the shift key down, it shows us the dimensions in real units without snapping to a whole integer number. If we release the shift key, it snaps back, so it's snapping at 18, 18 and a half. If we wish to snap more accurately, if we zoom in, so we zoom in, so I've used the middle roller mouse button there just to zoom in a little bit. So if we zoom in, now if we click, it's snapping at, we've got the ½ inch increment snap still. If we zoom a bit closer, now it's snapping at 0.1 of an inch. So we might say, okay, we want this guide to be at 18.2 inches. Press the F key to zoom out. We can do the same with the guides on the y-axis, or the horizontal guides. Again, these are snapping at whole increments, so we can snap on from the bottom. If we right click, so place the cursor over a guide, so you'll see the cursor changes when it's positioned over a guide. If we click the right hand mouse button, we then get the properties for this selected guide. So here it's telling us that it's exactly at y2 inches. We could delete the guide, we could lock it, we could also move it incrementally, so we could say create some new parallel guides incrementally. We'll say we want 2 new ones at an offset of, let's say, 1.5 inches from the selected one. So if I say create new guides, it's now created the first one 1.5 inches up from the selection, and the second one another 1.5 inches up. Click close. With the guidelines drawn in the two-dimensional view, we can draw geometry very quickly. So if I use the polyline tool, so create polyline, when I place the cursor in the two-dimensional view, you'll see that the cursor changes, snapping to the intersection points. So where the vertical and horizontal meet, the cursor changes to show me that it's snapped. So if I click with the left mouse button, it's snapped to that point. If we click where the cursor snaps to the end point, we get another point. We can click again. We can come along. We can snap at any point along this. You'll see it's snapping onto the guide. So we can click and snap at a point like so. Snap up, and you'll see that it's snapping vertically onto the guide again. The cursor changes, so snaps. It will then snap to the intersection, snap to the intersection again. So very quick, just to click, click, click. And then when we come back to the close point, you'll see that the cursor changes, indicating that it's a closed polyline. Click the right hand mouse button to cancel the draw polyline tool. And there we've very quickly created our vector geometry using the guidelines that we've drawn. So very quick and easy to draw things using guidelines. We can also switch on a snap grid. So if we say edit snap options, or press the F4 key, you'll see now that we get the snap options available. So we can say display the position of the cursor. We can snap to the guides. We can snap geometry to various elements on the objects or the vectors. So snap to centers, endpoints. We can switch some of these off if we don't want them to be operating. We can switch the snap grid on. So let's say, for example, we want a snap grid at increments of 1/2 inch, and we can force the snap distance. We can have a snap angle of say 15 degrees. If we click OK now you'll see that we've got these little dots being drawn in the two-dimensional view. If we zoom in, we've got the little dots. If I say draw a circle, so draw a circle, when we place the cursor over one of these snap points, you'll see the cursor changes, telling me that it's snapping now at 3.5 by 8.5. If I click and drag, it draws a circle for me. So we can say draw that circle. Let's make that an exact diameter of 0.75 of an inch and apply. So that's snapped at that point there. With the draw circle tool open, I can come in and you'll notice that the cursor's snapping again. So if I zoom in, we want a circle to be drawn at that point. So 16.5 inches along the X, 8.5 up in the Y. Click and it's drawn another circle for me. Let's zoom into the bottom corner. So remember that the center of this circle was drawn at 3.5 in the X. So if we come down, place the cursor there, you'll see it's snapping onto that point 3.5 and Y3, click for another circle. So very quick and easy to snap things and locate the positions of vectors using the snap grid. So just to do that again, we can say edit, snap options, or press the letter or the F4 keyboard shortcut. The snap settings on, we can make the snap grid invisible or not. We could change the spacing for the snap grid if we wanted, and we can change the snapping properties for some of the drawing tools. Click OK. Let's say we wish to fillet these corners. We can come in, use the filleting tool. So create fillets. Let's say normal fillet. Specify the radius for the fillet. So we want these to be 0.8 of an inch fillets. Place the cursor over a corner. You'll see that the cursor changes to have a little tick indicating it can fillet that corner. Let's make that a little bit bigger. So Control Z to undo. Let's make the fillet in that corner say 2 inches. We get a larger fillet. Click in the bottom left hand corner, large fillet, like so. So we can fillet the design very quick and very easy. If we wanted some little T-bone fillets here, so let's say we were going to cut the shape out, but we need the cutter to the part that mates into this slot to fit right up against this back edge. We need to use the T-bone or the dog bone fillets. Let's say T-bone fillet. Let's say we're going to cut this out with a 1/2 inch diameter bit. So we'll make the radius 0.26, so slightly bigger than the radius of a 1/2 inch cutter. We can say fillet and fillet. So now if we pushed a piece of material into this slot, it would fit right up against his back face. If we hadn't put the fillets in, we'd have the radius of the cutter in here that would stop the material being slotted together properly. So close. F to zoom to fit. Now we may put some additional information in the center of this plate. Let's draw something else here. So let's say we're going to draw a polyline and we want to snap some geometry so it'll snap. So we're literally just snapping to the snap grid. And you'll see that the cursor is staying horizontal. Snap. Let's come down a bit and we'll snap, just snapping simple clicks, and we're sure that when we get back we've got the right, we're on the right horizontal plane to close the vector that we've just drawn. Okay, so we've now drawn some additional geometry here, and we might want to go in and fillet all these corners. Or alternatively, we could just leave the cutter to fillet them when we cut the pocket out of the middle. So we've looked at using the guidelines. So the guidelines can literally be click and drag to move them, and we can drag them and they will snap to the edges of vectors. So we can snap guides like so. We could also use the snap grid option, so snap options, switch the snapping on or off for the different objects. Next we'll look at the layer control. So layer control here in the bottom left hand corner of the interface, we have the layer information. So this at the moment we've just got a single layer called layer 1 and everything is being drawn onto that layer. We could open the layer management tool, so layer control. Here we can say, okay, we want a new layer. Give the layer a name. Let's call this drill holes. Let's make anything that's drawn on that layer, we'll get it to be displayed in red or drawn in red, and click OK. So we've got an extra layer there. Now we can come in, we can select these holes. So click and select the circles with the shift key held down. Right click with the right mouse button, and we can say move to layer, and the drill holes layer that we've just created is now available. So if we say move to drill holes, it's visible. If we unclick, you'll now see that the holes are drawn as red. F to zoom to fit. We can switch the layer on or off. So this toggles the visibility. We could toggle the layer for everything else was drawn on layer 1. We could switch that visibility on or off. We could come in and say, okay, the pocket in the middle, we want this to be on a different layer. Now we could create a new layer here and give it a name and a color. Alternatively, we can select the vector, click the right hand mouse button, select the option to create a new layer, and let's call this inside pocket, and we'll make this a blue color, and we can make this layer active, and we can also control its visibility. So we'll make this layer active and make it visible. Click OK. So now if we click in the background, we get the blue geometry for that inside pocket, and if we click to select, you'll see down on the bottom right hand corner it says L for layer is named inside pocket. If we open the layer control tree, you'll see that we've got 3 layers now. We've got the layer for the internal pocket, we've got the layer for the holes, and we've got the layer 1 that was for everything else that was in this design. We may wish to rename layer 1, so we could change that to be outer profile and apply, and let's change the layer name there. We can move the layers up or down. For machining purposes, we might decide, okay, we want just to keep it organized, we could say we're really interested in the drilling the holes first, so we'll put that layer first. Then we want to machine the inner pocket, and then finally we want to cut the profile out. So we could save the organize the layers as required. We can also lock layers. So if we said, for example, we were scared that by selecting the internal pocket this might inadvertently get moved, Control Z to put it back. If we say inside pocket and we say lock this layer, so make it locked, hide the control manager. Now you'll see if I try to select, I can't select the inside blue pocket because it's locked. I can select anything else, and we could accidentally move one of the circles by clicking and dragging. But if we wanted the circles to be locked, we'd open the layer manager, or we can use the shortcuts here. We could say select the layer that we're interested in, so drill holes, and we could lock those. So now if we try to select them, they're not selected by a left hand mouse click. We can still select the outer profile but not the holes or the inner pocket area. If we want to switch the control so that we can edit and change this information, open the layer manager and we can say, okay, inside pockets, we really want that to be not to be locked. We don't want the drill holes to be locked either. So now we can actually select any of these objects. We may also wish to group things. So for example, if we were going to drill all of these holes, although they're on a layer that we could access quite quickly by switching everything off, just switching the drill holes on, and then clicking and dragging to select. Another option is to, let's switch the original layers back on. Another option is to select the circle, shift and select, and then use the option to group these. So there's an option here on the drawing tab to group the selection, or we simply press the letter G on the keypad. So these have been grouped, and you'll see there that they've been grouped and they've turned blue. Now the reason for that is because the inside pocket layer is the active or current layer. Let's just undo that, so edit undo, so we get the red circles back. If we make the layer manager, let's make the drill holes the active layer. So now we drag and select, shift to select the hole on the right hand side. If we press the letter G to group those, you'll see that they're still, although they change to be solid lines when selected, when we deselect, they're still drawn as red circles. So now if we click on any one of the circles, it selects all three. Click in the background to deselect, clicking on one, and it selects them all. So if we were going to drill out these holes, we would come across to the toolpath tab, create a drilling toolpath, specify the depth for the drill bit. Let's say we're going to drill 1/2 inch deep, select our bit and calculate. Well, let's just select one of the holes, so click on the top left, calculate, and it's now calculated the toolpaths for all three holes. So what we did there, if we close the tab, go back to the drawing tab on the left, we use the group command, so group a number of vectors together. We can also ungroup. So if we say ungroup, we got the menu option, or on the keypad we simply press U. So we say ungroup. Now you'll see that we've got the dotted selection indicating that they're separate vectors again. Okay, so that's the layer management here. So layer management, you can create as many layers as you want and copy or move vectors onto new layers. This allows us to organize designs and hide things that we're not interested in, which is quite useful for creating projects that have got lots of different types of toolpaths associated on them. There's also an option for creating sheets. This is really an option that's linked to the nesting tool. So if we were to say we'd got lots of this project, let's do it. Let's say if we scale this down, so drag and select. Just going to change the size of this, so we'll scale it down to be in the bottom left hand corner. Just going to switch off the snap grid, so edit, snap options, switch the snap grid off for a moment so the little dots disappear. Now we could drag the guides off and they would disappear. Alternatively, clicking in the top left hand corner toggles them on or off. Okay, so we're looking at the sheet option here. So sheets, if I wanted, say, 50 of this project to be cut out of a sheet of material or sheets of material, we'd say nest. Let's say we're going to cut them out with a, let's say we're going to use an 1/8 inch bit, 0.125, with an extra 0.12 of an inch gap between each of them. And let's say we wanted 40 of these. So apply, and we say nest. You'll see that we've got, the software has nested them into our sheet for us. So sheet 1, we'd be able to cut 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 12 pieces out of that sheet. Then we'd put another sheet on, so sheet 2 would then get another 12. Sheet 3 would get another 12, but then we'd need a 4th sheet to give us another 4 to get the total number of parts that we wanted to machine. And if we close, you'll now see we've got the layer control tree. We've also got the different sheets, and we can toggle between the sheets using the options here. So sheet 1, sheet 2, etc. So just to summarize, we've used the guidelines, we've looked at the rulers, so guides can be dragged on or off. We can change the visibility of the guides by clicking in the top left hand corner to switch them on or off. We've also looked at using the snap grid option, so F4, snap grid on or off. And there's also some snapping options for when drawing. And we've also looked at layer control using the layer manager and how we can create and put different objects on different layers, and also how to manipulate and work with different sheets of material. Thank you for watching the tutorial.